Howdy, AP Pre-Cal and IB Math. This is Ms. Kosh, and I wanted to put together something. What do I think you should be good at before you start in any of my classes? Okay, and so I wanted factoring is one of the most important things that you walk into this class knowing, and then special right triangles is the next most important thing. And then I think if you know a little number sense, if you know the different powers and exponents, if you just have this memorized and you recognize these numbers, it will make all three of the courses that I teach a lot easier. Okay, so what I did, what I put together, I'll post this PDF in the, I'll put a link to it in the description of this video. And then you'll notice if you pull up the PDF, you can click on these things. I found, well, what I'm going to do when I make a video is I'm not going to do all the examples. So you can finish it up. I may not make it post an answer key because I'm just may not care. Sorry. But what you can always do is you can always graph the first equation that I give you into Desmos or your calculator and then graph your answer. And if they're not the exact same curve, then you're wrong. So, okay. But this one, like in this one, this worksheet really kind of goes with both of these types of problems. And then on this one, I found 4 different types of worksheets to give you more practice. So what I intend to do is to do one of each type of these problems with you, give you a sense of what I'm looking for, and then let you do the other 3 of each type, make sure you're good, and if you find that you have a weakness in a certain area, then go click on the links to the CUDA worksheets are great because they give you problems on page 1 and 2 typically, and they give you the solutions on page 3 and 4. So these are just things, and the same idea here. They had 2 different worksheets with 30, 60, 90, and 45, 90 mixed in together. I didn't really find anything that relates to this, but what I would recommend with the powers is that you figure out what you don't already know, that you don't already have figured out, and take a dry erase marker and put it on your bathroom mirror until you've got it. Or the powers of 2 show up in the game 2048. So if you are familiar with the game 2048, anyway, the more you play, you get to watch me play for a second. The more you play this game, the more you just are familiar with these powers of 2. Okay, and you're like, oh, right, 32, I see that all the time when I play 2048. Okay, how about I do actual math and not just, anyway, there we go. Okay, so play 2048 so that you're good at the powers of 2, and then put whatever you don't know on your bathroom mirror so that you see it all the time and you start to know these numbers. Okay, so let's jump in. We'll see how long this video gets. Maybe I'll do a video. Well, I'll be reasonable with my timing. Okay, so that's the idea. You need to be really good at all of these things. None of this is, I mean, some of this is Algebra 1 and geometry, but this is what I think is the most important thing to be good at when you walk into my class. So with factoring, I called this one Just Do It. I mean, a hat tip to Nike. But basically, you don't really, these basic ones, you don't need a strategy. You just need to think about, okay, what do I want to multiply. How do I multiply to get x squared? Well, x times x. There's no other option. Okay, what do I do to multiply to get 6 or negative 6? Well, it's 6 and 1, or it's 2 and 3, but they can't be the same sign. So I know that it's going to have to be a 6 and a 1 because I'm subtracting, and so the 6 becomes the positive and the 1 becomes the negative. Okay, so this, and then so I was thinking about calling it guess and check, which is kind of what it is, but you're going to go back and multiply again. So this is x squared. Here's negative x, here's 6x. So 6x minus 1x is 5x, and it's positive, and here's negative 6. So you're basing things off of what you know. So like when you see any of these, the factors should pop out really quick. You should not do any practice enough so that you are good and you can just pop these out really fast and you don't have to think about it. Okay, the next one is the difference of squares. And in general, a squared minus b squared is equal to a minus b times a plus b. Okay, so you need to learn to recognize that and to be really good at finding these. This is a perfect square, that's a perfect square, so this is going to factor down to 2. The square root of 4x squared is 2x, or if 4x squared is a squared, then a is 2x. And then one of them is minus 9, and the other one is 2x plus 9. Okay, you have a few more to practice. On this one, whenever we have a plus b or a minus b squared, this gives us also a plus or minus b squared equals a squared plus or minus 2ab plus b squared. This is another, actually I would include, when you're writing stuff on your bathroom mirror, I would include this and I would include this. You need to be so good at those, they don't even slow you down in the slightest. So here, what I recognize, perfect square, perfect square. So when I see two perfect squares, I'm going to check the middle term. So if this is a perfect square, then that means we have a 2x right here. This is a perfect square, that would be a 3. And so this is a minus. So what I need to do to verify is multiply these together. That's a negative 6x, but then double it because it's 2ab. And that, sure enough, negative 6 doubled is negative 12, which is what we had. So then don't forget the square right here. And so that's what that one would equal. So there's a couple more to practice. I don't think I included to factor out a common factor, but some of these CUDA worksheets have you do that. I'm assuming you know how to factor before we jump into all this. Okay, I think the best way to factor something that's not pretty. So here's our number 13. It's this 20x squared minus 13x plus 2. The best thing to do is to split the middle term, and then you'll have 4 terms, and then factor by grouping. One of these factor by grouping worksheets gives you 4 terms, where it would be like x cubed plus 4x squared plus x plus 4 or something like that, where you would factor something out of these. So x squared factors out of these two, x plus 4, and then the only thing that comes out of these two is plus 1. And then so then you have an x plus 4, so this would equal x plus 4 times x squared plus 1, and that's how that would factor. Okay, great. More factor, so it has 4 different terms, but what I like to do with these when they're gross is I like to figure out how do we rewrite the middle term so that we get 4 terms and we can factor by grouping. One thing that I want to emphasize, notice I did not put parentheses here. And we had for a little while, we had a few maybe middle school teachers that would teach the kids, okay, factor by grouping, and they would group these together and put parentheses. Well, the problem with that is that now you're multiplying, and that's a different problem entirely. Like if I have this, if you tell me x cubed plus 4x squared, and then okay, so, and you had this, well now this ends up giving me something with x to the 4th. That is not the same thing I started with. So this is absolutely positively wrong. If you think, okay, well, I can do this if I put a plus sign here. Well, yes, you're right. Everything is fine, and you can factor by grouping this way. But the problem is when this becomes a minus sign. If this were a minus, so if I change the problem to x cubed plus 4x squared minus x minus 4, well, now I can factor out a negative. If you say, oh, let's just put the parentheses here, well, now you've changed it. A negative times a negative makes this a positive. If you remember, it's just complicated. Don't use parentheses is the short answer. If you were doing that one, I would do this thing again. Okay, what comes out? X squared, here's an x plus 4. What comes out of these two? A negative 1. What's left? X plus 4. Okay, and then what do I have? I have an x squared minus 1. I have an x plus 4. This is now the difference of squares, and this becomes x plus 1, x minus 1, x plus 4. Okay, so draw a line underneath these, do a little squiggly thing. I don't really care, just don't do parentheses, especially in my IB world, because what they're going to want you to do is never change the integrity of the problem. Okay, the whole way down this problem, each line needs to be congruent, no, the better word. Each line needs to be equivalent to what came before it. And that's really important, especially in IB when we start doing proofs. Okay, so here's how we're going to look at this number 13. I'm going to take these outside my, if this is ax squared plus bx plus c, I'm going to multiply these, my a and my c, and that gives me 40. And so now I'm going to think about, okay, how can I multiply and get a positive 40? Well, 1 and 40 and 2 and 20 and 3 does not go in, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. Okay, do any of these, and 6 doesn't, and 7 don't. Okay, so these are the ways that I can multiply and get 40. But I need to combine and get a negative 13, so what I notice is I need to make both of those negative. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come along and say, okay, well this is equivalent to rewriting this as a minus 8x and a minus 5x plus 2. Okay, this is exactly equivalent to what came before, which is why I like this method better, because you have not changed your equation. You haven't messed with the integrity of the problem. Okay, so what factors out of these two? 4x. So 4x, what am I left with? 5x, and then minus 2. Oh, what factors out of here? Just a negative 1. And that leaves me with a 5x minus 2, which showed up in both. Notice this, okay, I forgot to do the little brackets there, but it's kind of obvious what I was doing. I have not, everything is still equivalent to what came before, which is really important in the IB world in particular. I mean, it's important math-wise, but my IB kids in particular have to be careful with that. Okay, what showed up in both of those terms? 5x minus 2 and a 4x minus 1. Now, maybe you saw that. Maybe you knew that the 2 was going to break down to 1 and 2, and that the 20 you would start with 4 and 5, and you can kind of do this sort of, just do it and power through. But if you didn't, then this method will work. And we can double check. This gives me 20x squared. Here's a negative 5x, a negative 8x. So negative 5 and negative 8 is negative 13x, which we have, and a negative times a negative is a positive 2. Okay, now here's a few more to practice, but notice the most important thing, this is equivalent to what came before, this is equivalent to what came before, and this is equivalent to what came before. Think of it as a little baby proof. Okay, the last method here, or the last section, is where we'd like to do a U substitution. Not a me substitution, but a U substitution. I think I'm funny. And what we'll do is we'll rewrite, I picked these, or I wrote these in such a way that you're like, I don't know, okay, what's happening? Where we throw in some weird random stuff. So what we notice here is that this could be written as e to the x squared minus 4 times e to the x minus 5. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll say let u, not me, but let u equal e to the x. I'm funny, you just have to ask the right people. And so then I can rewrite this as this is u squared minus 4u minus 5. And hopefully you recognize, I ran out of space. Hopefully you recognize that that factors easily. And we can now, we rewrote this in such a way that it's easy and it's clear to see how to factor. Okay, how do I multiply and get u? Just u squared is u and u. How do I get 5? Well, 5 and 1, but it needs to be a negative, so here's the negative, here's the positive. Am I finished? No, because they gave it to me in terms of e and x, and I have now got the answer in terms of u. But what I know is that this is e to the x minus 5 times e to the x plus 1. And part of all 3 of the courses I teach involves now what do we do, how do we solve that? But I just wanted you to practice doing a u substitution so that you can factor. Super. And I think that I don't remember how close this was to the practice I gave you, but anyway, we'll hit that again in all of my courses next year. All right. We'll come back for another video with part 2. So like, subscribe, comment to all the things. If you are brand new to my world, hopefully you can navigate all the playlists and figure out the best way to learn math with me. All right, go practice.